Hello, hello. Welcome to Office Hours. Oh, there we go. That's Veronica. This is Office Hours from AuthZed. My name is Sohan Maheshwar, and we do this every week-ish where we take something cool that we're building and live stream about it. And today we are going to be talking about infrastructure as code and Terraform providers and authorization. And I'm joined by the one and only Veronica, who's worked on a lot of this. Veronica, welcome back to the stream. Second time, I think, on Office Hours.
Yeah, this is my second time. Very happy to be here. Very excited to talk about the Terraform provider. It has been a very interesting project for us at AuthZed Spice TV. And yeah, excited to be here.
Sweet. So we're going to dive straight into it. But if it's your first time watching Office Hours, well, this is, as the name suggests, Office Hours. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. If you just want to say hi to us, put it in the chat. We love hearing from you. And we're going to dive straight into it. And Veronica, talk about Terraform providers. Now, you've written a fair share of infrastructure as code in your life, including creating some providers. So what goes into the creation of a Terraform provider?
Yeah, well, this is a huge answer. So yeah, in the audience must know that in my previous lives, professional lives, I have been a hybrid of software engineer and infrastructure engineer, or SRE, or however you want to call it. Now I think it's platform engineer. And so I have both built tooling around APIs such as Terraform providers, and I have used them as well to automate workloads. So when we first started thinking about there was a specific user that wanted us to have a Terraform provider, which makes a lot of sense, but we didn't have one. And so in one of my previous jobs, I was part of a very large API team that is like it's the DigitalOcean API, which is like canonical example of good APIs, and everything is just organic, everything works. So I remember that I learned a ton from that time, and we also used to have a Terraform provider. And at that time, I didn't know what that was. I would use it, but I wouldn't know how to build one. So when we started having conversations at AuthZed to have a Terraform provider that will consume an API that is also in progress, and stay tuned for announcements about this.
Coming soon, TM.
Coming
Yeah.
soon. Yeah, I was like, okay, I know this. So I raised my hand, and I wanted us to try to replicate, even though it's a different system, a different complexities behind it. I really got in my brain ingrained in how something like that can look like, in terms of that it has to be a generative process. And I'm not even talking about AI tools and things like that. No, but like things that cannot, a process that doesn't cause more pain to the team building it, but instead like very organically adding items, adding features to the tooling, right? So I really wanted to own this, to bring that knowledge, and it has been fun so far. Yeah, so that is the motivations and I would say social or knowledge aspects, and then comes the technical side of it, and that is for me it has been so much fun, very interesting. So there are many ways to build a Terraform provider. One of the most popular ones these days is following an open API spec. So we have our API, and it follows, for the most part, aspirationally and in practice, open API specifications, both for UX purposes, but also it helps us develop things in a more modular and organic way. So I took the challenge by myself. I made it a mission to only build this Terraform provider only having access to the Open API spec. This means that even though I work at AuthZed and I have access to all the source code of all the API and the adjacent tools, one of the things that I wanted to see was like how good our Open API spec was for consumers that can use it in any sort of ways via Postman or any other tooling. And so, as I said, my personal challenge was like, okay, I want to build this Terraform provider based on solely on our Open API spec, and that should be the only thing that I ideally could have access to, ideally in the beginning, right? So also because by definition, most of the Terraform providers codes that are published in the official HashiCorp registry have to be open source. So in the spirit of keeping things open source, usability, all the things that we love at AuthZed and that have also been integral part of my career, I was like, okay, let's do it. And almost as if you are a user and just day to day, if you have access to that Open API spec, in theory, and you had the right credentials, you could be able to build this Terraform provider yourself. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And that, I think at the beginning of this year. So I should have a meme here of like everything rosy, everything cute at the beginning, and how I am right now. But I will leave it there for you to keep the conversation going, and then I can tell you how it's like today.
Yeah, and for folks, I've pasted the link to the GitHub in the AuthZed organization, which is the Terraform provider itself, which is what we'll be talking about today. So Veronica, let's maybe deep dive into like the provider itself and writing it. And this is a project we've been working on for a while. We can see that in our GitHub as well. Let's talk about what it does, perhaps, right? So can you tell us a little bit about, you know, how it helps in like the automation of permission systems and whatnot?
Yeah. So the goal is, I will start with how will it look like once it is quote unquote finished, because the audience must know that this is still a work in progress, and not just as the nature of a product that is always a work in progress, but we're not feature complete yet. So stay tuned for that. But yes, but so the goal of it is to be able to provision all sorts of, let's say, if you're a user of our product, you are familiar with permission systems, for example, and the underlying resources that are depending on it. So the vision is for users to be able to create a permission system only via infrastructure as code. This is one of our top requested features, and then be able to manage manage the resources, but also the full life cycle. Like if you want to delete resources, you can delete them. If you want to update them, you can update them, etc. So the way I started building this was, as I said, based on the Open API spec, and so implementing endpoint by endpoint, with 2 layers. If you see the repo, we have code for the provider itself and then for the data sources, right? So I literally started implementing the parity with like the data source and the provider side. So for now, we have support for the main resources, that is like the service accounts, the tokens, the policies, all the backbone of our systems. And we actually have users using it. So, but to go a bit back to your question, so that is the aspiration to, and the aspiration that is in progress. It's not, I'm not using the word aspiration as like something that we cannot do. So yeah, and people will ideally be able to manage all of these resources via infrastructure as code, which is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of lots of people, very it takes a big load out of your day-to-day workflows and how
Right.
you. I'm not even talking about the workflows, the code workflows, but like how you address like different situations and for different scenarios in your system, specifically
Yeah.
for something as authorization, right?
Yeah. So what would it look like right now for, like, say, someone using, AuthZed Dedicated versus if they use the Terraform provider, right? So what is the difference for them?
Yeah, this is a great question that I'm very excited. So currently, you manage different parts. Every existing user that we have has a different set of combinations, permutations of this. So some of them have to go to the main UI that we have, Rakis, and provision their permission systems there, and then with the right credentials, they are able to interact with their permission systems and creating roles, creating policies. A policy, how what users have access to different aspects of your system, etc. And like you can do this programmatically, or in how can I say this, like
Very ClickOps style,
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I'm a big fan of ClickOps. I'm just going to say, I love clicking on things, all you new fancy engineers with your infrastructure as code. Back in my day, we just clicked on things to do things. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. No, honestly, and this is a core aspect that we can touch later. Sometimes just clicking on things works. Like you don't need anything more fancier than that. However, as we grow, our users start getting more ambitious workloads and more policies to deal with and faster, etc. So this was not the original reason why we started developing the provider itself, but now with the organic growth, the organic use cases that we've gotten to see, it just makes a lot of sense. So in one core aspect, I don't know if people who are seeing this, if they have used the Terraform provider, but for those who haven't, being able to automate, this is the keyword, like automate the life cycle of your resources is the key aspect of this. So being able to automate when you have one resource or very few resources that live long for a specific period of time might not be like a game changer, but it is a game changer when I keep saying policies because that is the most evident case. Like the more people or the more sub cases that you start hosting in your system that require different access policies, authorization policies, you get more the benefit of it. So yeah, that the key is the automation, and to be able. Another thing is to not everyone does this, I have to say, in Terraform in general, but a lot of people do. Then store their Terraform configuration files on source on source code on GitHub or whatever. So not everyone does that because sometimes for security purposes or whatever, but it is something that you can do. And so that is great for scalability purposes in your organization.
Yeah, I mean, all jokes about ClickOps aside, I think infrastructure as code is such a key component in any enterprise's production systems, right? Because you want to try and automate everything. You want to try to minimize any sort of errors that could creep in. And when you look at the creation of infra as code, you can store it on like a repository. You can like test it, and all of these things they're like well-oiled machines basically, but in code. So yeah, agree.
Yep. And then people can just have many of this at the same time. So instead of having to go through the very manual process of dealing with this. Now, of course, you could say they're organic or in-house solutions that people can have to automate different aspects of their authorization system, even while using SpicyBee or AuthZed. But this is like a unified solution that we want to give to you. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, this is open source. It has been an interesting use case for open source because you can see the code in the repo. By the way, if you look at the code in the repo right now, it needs a bit of code organization. So we are aware of that. To as the code base has grown, especially over the past couple of months, it has started to get like real traction with real users, real world usage, not just like, oh yeah, I can do the same thing but in infrastructure as code. No, but like we have been tested, so we
Nice.
prioritize the power of it over other aspects of it. But yeah, so if you go right now to the repo, you will see the code, and you can also have access to the OpenAPI spec as it is today. Many aspects. However, the challenging but fun part for creativity is that, well, in order to use this, you need to have dedicated our AuthZed dedicated product access. So not everyone can run this unless you have the right credentials. There are all the instructions are there on how to get those credentials if you're a user, things like that. So for purposes of like involving the community in this project, by the way, if you're there, we would really appreciate having a star, more stars there. So
yes, folks, please start. I've already started, Veronica. So yeah.
Thank you. This helps us.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
the famous engineering thing about choosing your future projects with GitHub stars, right? So we need more
exactly.
stars.
So
Yeah.
I honestly dislike that from a personal point of view, but I know that is how a lot of these projects work. So don't hate a player, hate a game, but whatever. So if you're there, please give us a star. And so anyway, going a little bit back on the challenge on balancing the open source aspect of this and the actual application of it is like we are at a point where we need tons of feedback. But of course, if you don't have access to dedicated, you cannot run this. In the next couple of weeks, I will try to groom the project and to include some tasks that for those who would like to contribute, even without having access. Ideally, you all that are listening to us right now will sign up for a dedicated account. But if you don't, this is a very, I'm insisting a lot on this aspect because it's part of the AuthZed DNA at the end of the day and my personal beliefs and like open source. So like if you would like, I know it's also like an entry point for lots of people. So I am working on a model to accept contributions in a way that you don't necessarily have to be a user. And so I will start marking some of the issues as good, nice. How do people call them? Like
good first issues? Is that the
good first issues?
like a good okay, got it. Yeah.
Things like that, because we need a ton of help on those things that we can all benefit from. And yeah, so that is in a nutshell the status of it. I don't know if you would like to talk specifically about the future of it.
I think we'll get to that. Maybe we can deep dive a little bit about the providers itself, like the things it does.
Yeah.
And then we can, maybe get to the future of what else we can do with, the Terraform provider.
Okay, cool. So for example, let's see. Let's go to, oh, by the way, this one is, you can consume it directly from the HashiCorp registry. It's there.
Oh yeah, let me just add that link as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mentioned that because we have made it a point to include very explicit documentation there on including examples on things that you can do. So if we could go to the
hey, we have more than 1,000 downloads.
That's
pretty cool. Yeah, that's nice.
It's pretty cool. Can we go to the docs? Yeah. So there you have like very basic example usage on how to incorporate this into your workflow. Oh, one key thing there is the API version. So I know you didn't ask me this, but I have to mention it, both for our users, but also for those interested in the behind the scenes thing. So this provider tracks or consumes the API, our API that we have been building for a while at AuthZed. As I said, the Open API spec is public, but the code is not, right? So for now, at least. So that API was born with many reasons in mind, but Terraform Provider was not. So there are a bunch of API design questions that were not and are still not 100% compatible with how we ideally would like an API to look like for a Terraform provider. And this is not because we don't want to, but because there are other priorities, right? So sorry for the ambiguity, but what I am trying to say, since part of this is private, we came up with the versioning like this because there were points in our design discussions where, from my Terraform provider blinkers view, I was like, no, we cannot do that because it will not translate good or would not translate well into the provider. And I would need this to be designed in this way with this nesting or without this nesting or things like that. And people would be like, no, we need to do it this way because there was another business priority. And then I would push back, saying, no, but if we address it later, then this would be a big breaking change for
that's the tech
users.
debt, right? The tech debt that you accrue. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but more than like that is very important, but also it was like, since we're shipping this provider with some users in mind that are going to really benefit from the infrastructure as code automations and take this as a real game changer for their the speed and quality of their workflows. We cannot just tell them one day, like, hey, everything will be broken, so can you just redo all your Terraform files and everything, because that won't work anymore. So the team came up with like, okay, why don't we do it with API versioning like this, so that breaking changes are literally like managed with the versioning style, rather than just like introducing them like that. So I think that was brilliant and a good compromise on things that will definitely change in the near and medium term future, but without breaking breaking users now. As I am saying
Yeah.
this, I don't want to curse myself. And like
Yeah.
people to come back to this video like in 3 months and saying like, you said that you wouldn't break it.
Yeah. Fair.
But it's so
Yeah.
far. So
Yeah,
yeah,
but
so you
that's an
have,
interesting way to do API versioning, I think, right? Because it's slightly different from API versioning convention, but because we're moving from something that is beta to something that will change, and the functionality also will change. I think this is like a good sort of way to actually roll it out.
that's right. So okay, so I mentioned that because I think it's very important for
Yeah.
users to know and know the behind the scenes side. So then another aspect that you need to know is that this is still in what we call tech preview.
Mm-hmm.
So I love working in the open in general. Now I am very used to it, but I also know that comes with their fair share of like opinionated takes. So if you have any feedback, even if it's just like style, anything else, please let us know. Then the third component that is very critical for us here at in this specific Terraform provider is the security part, right? Because even though well, yeah, what I said at the beginning about the taking it as a personal challenge to only follow the Open API spec to develop this provider was also because I was personally a bit quote unquote scared to open the gates to unwanted usage, like inadvertently.
Right. Yeah.
Come up with authorization faults that were not supposed to be there. So a good safeguard for me and for users is like, okay, if it's not already in the API, I won't come up with new different things. Now, this is important for the current state of the development, because now that you have the parts of the puzzle together, it's like I am not just sharing these things for content. I would just share things, but it's the aspect of how to put this together, right? So, sorry, I lost my train of thought for 1 second, but I got it. So, with deciding to only follow the OpenAPI spec for the security aspect was like, okay, the benefit of that is I don't have the responsibility to create new things that are not there. Fine. But as we evolve the project and as our users start getting having more ambitious workloads, more recently with parallelism at big and fast scale, and there are some let's say shortcuts or some implementation details that I could add on as a programmer, as a software engineer, to deal with something, but that would break my model and my decision to follow the Open API spec. So there have been some limitations that we have on the API side, and that for if you are a software engineer in these days, there are business needs, business constraints, priorities, technical aspects, a combination of things that don't always make it possible to immediately say like, oh, let's just change this in our API and we'll be done. So
it's not that easy, right? Yeah, it's any small change, or you have to take a lot of care into something like this. It's not oh, I'll make this and let's see what happens type thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So recently the limits have been pushed into saying like, oh, I cannot change this in the API right away because it might work for the Terraform provider, but it will break other two things.
Right.
So at the same time, the users of the Terraform provider are like, no, but we want more, and we're breaking the limits, which is great. But at the same time, we're like, okay, how are we going to be able to support this when the API is in the state that it is? So that has been a very interesting challenge to solve. I mean, as per definition, like a challenge, it also comes with a lot of like banging my head against the wall. But there's also the creativity of it all. Like, okay, we can establish these things. Also, one fun fact I have to say is, like, last time that I worked on like big API design and Terraform providers and so on was back in the day when we were doing in that team a migration to OpenAPI 2.0 or something like that. And right now we are in version 3. Imagine. So like there were
It's been a while.
several years.
Yeah.
There were several years where I did not know like bits of the upgraded version. So I have had the opportunity to go like deep dive into it. So yeah, so for people seeing this and our users, what I wanted to communicate with all of that is that you can be sure that with this provider, we won't open the gates of hell. You can 100% trust that, because that is a key aspect that a lot of people ask us. We don't introduce anything that is not already implemented on the API side and on AuthZed in general. So, and this is a common question because by definition, when you have your workflows automated as part of your infrastructure as code, in some cases, in very big, large, ambitious Terraform setups, developers not only have a little like the AuthZed or SpiceDB workflows automated. No, they usually integrate them with many things and with like other products from other companies. So with something in the critical path, just as our product, they are really cautious about not putting this automation in place and suddenly like, oh, that opened the gates to like things we didn't want, not only for this product but for many other products. Yeah. So by being on the other side, like on the infra side for many years, I have a personal high empathy with like that, with like, no, I don't want to ship something that not only break workflows in general, that is one of my big concerns. If you ask any of my teammates, I'm always advocating for that, but also to not introduce security failures that would propagate to other aspects of their stack.
Right. No, and I think it's so important, especially in the setup that we're at here in AuthZed, because as you mentioned, authorization is on the critical path. And there is some sort of self-selection that happens with both users, customers, because a Zanzibar-like system like SpiceDB works at scale. It's meant for scale and low latency and high availability. So you don't want to be, introducing things like breaking changes and stuff to a critical component of that entire process, right? So I can completely empathize and also understand the challenges that come with what you basically built with the Terraform provider.
Yeah. So, well, that is a bit of nuance that comes with this specific Terraform provider that provides like authorization compared to like other providers that I have been involved in, that you care about other aspects. Like another key aspect for us is the consistency of data. That again, we're quite protected with following just the OpenAPI spec, but there is, for those who are unfamiliar with Terraform, there's this concept of Terraform state, and that it is the responsible component of Terraform that manages, as the name says, the state of the resources that you're trying to manage. Why? Because there's like the dependency graph, and specifically in our API, that, for example, one component cannot exist if we don't have a valid service account, right? Or a user that is not included in a policy cannot go on, etc. So those are very basic things to be mindful of. So there have been times where the Terraform state has to explicitly be aware of that, because to just to say something for the audience to understand. So while working with a lot of service accounts that have their own, and permission systems that have their own set of resources, we noticed that even though the API and the regular product was completely fine at knowing the dependency graph for them and the hierarchies, Terraform state, while trying to be helpful with concurrency aspects, started behaving weird. Like not in an insecure way, but in a way that made users think that there was something wrong with their Terraform plans.
Okay.
So that there was like a fake drift on their plans. And so when we started seeing that, we were really worried about what is going on, right? But it turned out to be that it was just how Terraform state behaves. So that is another aspect that not only of being good at Terraform and knowing how state works, which you should, but also like for authorization companies like ours, it's critical. Like it's not just like a little bug to overlook and we'll figure out later. No, it's like, even though it was not a real threat, we treated it as if it were. So
and I have a question for you here, Veronica, and very general, because I've heard this come up in conferences and videos and things. But when you're building infrastructure as code, is this worry of drift basically, is that a thing that you need to be worried about or designed for when you're writing IAC?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, always checking for drift. All the infra people here would know that is like the main thing to be aware of, and especially in large automations, to see like, okay, are these changes the ones that we really want in or not? I have seen many like orthogonal to this specific conversation or this specific product, etc. Like in other teams in the past, the most constant question is like, how can I make Terraform less scary?
I think that should be a next stream, Veronica. Like, I think that we have a winner there.
Yeah. And the conclusion is like, you can't. You can't.
End of stream. That's it. Done. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And well, there are ways to be more confident about like what you are comparing is what you really want. There's always that component of being like, okay, we cannot 100% put all our eggs in that basket. Like you have to have other things like increasing rollouts or rollback mechanisms or things like that. But that is super out of the scope of this conversation. But yeah, so once again, as I have had a lot of experience being the person who has to click the button of like, okay, this plan looks the way it should. it is a very important aspect for me to avoid people to to absorb that pain away from them as much as possible. So, and then again, that itself is an issue in the infra world, but then for an authorization flow is extra important. So yeah, so we came across that at high concurrency, parallelism, high volume, that the Terraform state was telling people that they had fake drifts, and I was like, oh, okay, great. How do we manage this? And again, that was another problem that with the quote unquote right details on the API side, we could have simply solved on the Terraform provider side, but we were not like it was not a priority at that point. So it was like, okay, we definitely have to deal with this. So we started brainstorming ways to really make sure that the things that the infra engineers were looking at were exactly what you see is what you get. Like no more things. Yeah, and there were other mechanisms that they could use that were Terraform native. But yeah, we obviously again want to take away the pain as much as possible so that it's easy to use. So there was another deep dive from our side to see like how can we there's something called plan modifiers in Terraform to deal with this type of things. So we dug deep into how to use plan modifiers for this in an elegant way, in a clean way that is not just like patching things around. Yeah. So we have learned a lot. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah, folks watching, we are talking about Terraform providers. Veronica here was instrumental in building the Terraform provider for AuthZed Cloud, Dedicated, etc., which you can see the link on the screen. Check it out. It's still very much a work in progress. So it's also open source. So if you feel like contributing or joining the community, please feel free. And I mentioned now, Veronica, it's work in progress. And it is complex. And of course, we have a bunch of things planned for the near future, including AuthZed is 5. Yes, AuthZed as a company is 5 years old. It's past toddler, so it's a child now. I don't know what the exact age groups, but 5 years old. And next week we're actually hosting an authorization infrastructure event. We have a bunch of great speakers, including myself. No, I'm kidding. But including Jake Moshenko, CEO of AuthZed. We have Andy Pavlo, who's the professor of databaseology. I did not know that was a word, but it is. But we also have folks from Canva and Turo speaking, and we have a lot of cool geeky stuff around the world of authorization and databases to share with you. So join there. And if you sign up in the link, you get free swag delivered to your house as well. So that's always an incentive. And yeah, don't forget to sign up. Okay, Veronica. So towards the end of the stream today, at the start, you mentioned you wanted to speak a little bit about the future of the Terraform provider, what it could potentially do, and the ideas that you might have. So yeah, take it away.
Yes. So the main thing that we wanted to do from the beginning, because it was a cool thing to have, but now we have increasingly gotten requests by existing users like, oh, if you're having a Terraform provider, why can't I create my permission systems by there? Because right now you have to do it one by one and most popular way, and our UI in Rakis that is beautiful and it's great, but for some people they would like to just like put all of this into infrastructure as code and just let it soar. So, and I agree with them, we all agree with them. So we're working on that. I mean, it's not a secret, it's coming. I cannot say, yeah, it's coming soon, TM.
Coming soon, TM. I have that on like, it's almost like on speed dial, like the banners right there. Because, you know, in the tech world, in the startup world, everything is coming soon, TM. So it's always there.
Yeah. So that is the most requested feature, and we hear you. And even before people started requesting it, we had it in progress. So if you want to know, okay, how can I put this to not ruin the surprises? So part of the reasons why we haven't supported this yet is because there are other components, other things coming up that if you register for the AuthZed 5 celebrations, you will you would get to know all the things that we have under the hood, and not so much under the hood for you. And so some of those will unlock the creation of permission systems via in a way more efficient way via infrastructure as code. So once that is the cat is out of the bag, I am personally ready. Like, we're ready to just like unblock the path and start working towards that. So that is very, very exciting, because the current usage that users have been benefiting from with the Terraform provider is using their already existing resources that they created by other ways, like more manual ways, pre-Terraform provider. We added the ability for them to use those same resources in Terraform and import them, import them and export them.
Yeah.
So it is, this is a feature that not everyone supports, but we do. And I think that is the biggest success right now, that people with already existing resources can just access them and work with them via Terraform. But that is for those folks who are already using like this in a comfortable way, that we're using our product without the infrastructure as code, and now it's a slight or major live improvement. But the creation of permission systems, we have heard, this is overheard from some people, that the only reason they are not here yet is because they already have very ambitious infrastructure as code workflows in their organizations, and they are dying to come and use our product, and they have been like huge fans of us for a long time, but that it's a difficult sell for their teams if that is not supported, right? So we're very, very excited to have that. And among other things, also, if you create them, you will be able to delete them, to modify them, and do a bunch of related stuff that I cannot talk about yet, but it's all there. Soon. So and this is important, not just for product and the AuthZed 5 thing, but also because if you go to the open source thing and the repo and you see the code and the Open API spec, and you see like, hey lady, this is so incomplete, there's a reason for that. Don't worry. You'll see it. Stay tuned.
Nice. All right. Yeah. So I really hope everyone who's watching this stream tunes into AuthZed 5 next week. Because we have announcements, but we also have a bunch of great speakers who'll be doing some pretty cool tech deep dives. So I think you're going to like it. Cool. Veronica, anything else you want to share before we wind down the stream?
No, well, other than please get involved. I know it's a weird situation to be in when you don't have access to the product itself, but you have access to the code. But if there is anything I can help you with personally with the repo, and if you want to get involved regardless, please let me know. Please give us a star, share it with your friends, and yeah. And we have our Discord server. Please chat with us there. Stay tuned.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Well, Veronica, thanks so much again for your time, but and also for working on this Terraform provider. Can't wait to have you on the stream again for something cool that you're building in the future. So,
Yeah,
looking forward to
probably
that.
once we finish this.
Yes, for the sequel, Terraform 2
Yeah.
Electric Boogaloo coming soon. Anyway, folks, thanks again for watching, and we will see you soon. Until then, bye bye, and see you next week.